All right. Let's see. The thrill of illusion. Theater scenes create a sense of a separate magical world. The actors' makeup, the fake but alluring sets, the slightly unreal costumes. These heightened visuals, along with the story of the play, create illusion. To produce this effect in real life, you must fashion your clothes, makeup, and attitude to have a playful, artificial edge, a feeling that you have dressed for the pleasure of your audience. This is the goddess-like effect of a Marlene Dietrich. Your encounters with your targets should also have a sense of drama achieved through the settings you choose and through your actions. The target should not know what will happen next. Create suspense through twists and turns that lead to the happy ending you are performing. Daily law, whenever your targets meet you, give them the vague feeling of being in a play, the thrill of wearing masks, of playing a different role from the one your life has allotted you. That's from The Art of Seduction. Appendix A, Seductive Environment, Seductive Time. All right. Well, they say all the world's a stage and we are merely players. Mm, that's good stuff. Alrighty. Okay. Had all kinds of dreams again. The last dream was the only one I remembered. It was weird. Someone was showing me a pair of they were like dueling guns. It was weird. And I fired one off, but it made not like the normal sound of a gun. It's like they shot something else. It wasn't like regular bullets. It was weird. And the whole thing, like the way you load them, like the barrel crack open instead of having like a cylinder, like a revolver or like a clip, like a Glock. These ones were like single fire, like dueling guns, almost like not so much like a pirate's gun because they look like normal guns, and they kind of look more like a revolver, but it didn't have that cylinder. It had like one like barrel for almost like the way like a double barrel shotgun like breaks so you can put those two shells in. This broke like that, and for like one round to be put in. It was weird. There was a pair of them. I was asking the guy, "What the heck are these?" And I woke up. Kind of funny. How that was in my brain is the weirdest thing. I'm fascinated by how the mind works when it comes to what it does to like construct a dream. Like all the stuff it pulls together, that's in your mind somewhere, or not. Who knows where they come from? They always go back to that Bill Ayers dream I had. I must have come across that because I've heard of the Weather Underground, so I must have heard of him. But somehow that mind and that name entered into my. I keep wanting to say I'd never heard of that, but I'd heard of the Weather Underground through all the like documentaries and stuff I'd watched. crack this open a bit for a second. Get some airflow in here until I get on the freeway. A little stuffy in here. All right. Yeah, that page is interesting when it talks about illusions because, it talks about making like the moment for your target like illusory. I think that's how you say the word. But if you wanted to like zoom that up from a higher altitude of perception, that's what people say this whole thing could be. And if we're all the target, if you want to put it in that context, the way that page was written, then I guess God would be the creator of the illusion. We are all his target. It's interesting too because I was having this conversation with my dad about Charlie Kirk, and I know he didn't like it, but I mean it's an important point to have to consider, and you have to consider it when it comes to the translation of very old texts. To change the meaning of a word can have a profound impact on what people think later on down the line. And when you do stuff like that, I mean that's like a propaganda tactic. That's how you like subvert the origin of of an idea. Since everything in this world is words. So it's like important that like the definition and the meaning of words remain consistent throughout time. And then he ended up saying like, well, yeah, the meaning of words change all the time. That's common, so it's no big deal. He's like, the word gay used to mean happy, and now it means something else. And I'm like, that's exactly my point. It's like that word went from something being very innocent to a slur of sorts. I'm like, that's a major change. And that kind of makes you have to, if they do that with that kind of word, then imagine how many words in the Bible might have been, I want to say, mistranslated. That was the first thought that came to mind. But then the next question becomes, let's say there were words that were just mistranslated or misunderstood. We'll throw them a bone and say, okay, maybe you guys just got it wrong on accident. That's a possibility. But then the question becomes, well, what are the other possibilities? Like, how many words did you translate into something different on purpose? That's where it becomes concerning. And then there was like a long pause in the conversation with my dad, and he ended up telling me something about one of his brothers, because one of his brothers was in Vietnam, and he's a bit off. He's not, I guess, as normal as other people would like him to be. My dad told me some weird little anecdote about how he was talking to my dad. My dad had said something, and he asked my dad why he used that a particular word. My dad didn't elaborate what word that was. My dad was like, "What word?" I'm like, "That word you." He said, "That word you just said. Why did you say that?" And my dad responded something like, "It's just the way I talk. That's the word I chose to use." And then my dad said something like, "Remember thinking, man, this guy's nuts." And I'm like, how sad. And as I read that, I'm like, how sad for you to think something like that. And the only reply I could come up with is like, yeah, misunderstood people tend to be dismissed and thought of as nuts. I'm like, that's pretty common. And that kind of got me thinking, like, a lot of the world's most brilliant minds at first were thought to be nuts. Because the lower level minds just don't understand how they process information. Most of the people out here are carbon copies of each other, and they all think the same. And when there's someone else that thinks a bit different, people think they're crazy. If you want to believe all the stories of like going to the moon, not saying we didn't, not saying we did, but when that idea first popped up, 100% of the people around them said, you are nuts. Or the people who wanted to first circumnavigate the earth, or at least even come to America, let's sail to the other side of the ocean. You're nuts. There's nothing else out there. Or Alexander Graham Bell. All the greatest inventors, people who invented the cell phone, the internet, when they came up with these ideas, all the people that they presented them to, just out of habit and resistance, those are the first thoughts those people always have, is like, this guy's nuts. Now, in my dad's case with his brother, he might have a bit of a point, only because there's mental trauma. That guy, my Uncle Ruben, there's somebody walking on the freeway. What is happening? Not a safe place to be. And my uncle's a bit off. He's been through a lot. He's probably put himself through a lot too, willingly, let's say. But just because my dad, doesn't understand him, that doesn't mean he's nuts. And I thought that was pretty sad. That's your brother. But my dad's not really the kind of person to try to understand other people. He doesn't care to. He doesn't have that quality of mind that allows him to step outside of himself and to consider other thoughts other than his own. He's very single-minded. And I feel bad for people like that. I mean, they have to exist, I guess. But that inability to be able to consider what's going on in other people's heads is the reason like his marriage didn't work out. It's the reason why my dad doesn't have the best relationship with his own kids. And it's the reason why he did a lot of the things that he did, because he didn't really consider the effects it might have on the immediate people that were around him. It's a very inconsiderate way to conduct yourself. It's very ego-centered, really. He only thought about himself. And if you kind of, expand that out to today, he's still kind of like that, even in his faith. Very single-minded. I remember growing up, never wanting to be like that. So I guess that's why I developed into who I am. That's cool. Everybody pulled over to help those people. Because somebody was having an issue with their cars. The tow truck there, there's a cop car there. Like a woman with a bag. I'm pretty sure it was just something went wrong. She needed help. That's what I'm hoping. Not like she got pulled over for doing something wrong. But I think like empathy is a very underrated quality in people today. Everybody's really encouraged to be centered on themselves without considering what's happening to other people. Like even with the whole, make America great again. To a certain degree, that's the encouragement of only thinking about ourselves. Which I guess, I don't know. Let's distill it down to the context of like a single family, mother and a father and children. There's two ways to think about it. Like what's best for me is what's best for other people. That's one way to think. But if you flip that around, what's best for other people is also what's best for me. That's another way to think. And I think that's a healthier way to think. Because that's more along the lines of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Because so think of yourself first. That would be flipping that phrase into do for yourself as you would have others do for themselves. And that's not how that saying goes. It's phrases like that in the Bible that always stuck with me the most. That kind of thinking, the do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That always keeps your mind centered on the other. How you act and behave has an effect on other people. So behave with them in a way that you would find acceptable if they were to behave with you. I think that's a pretty healthy way to live. That's like the golden rule, right? Pretty much. Let's see, what does this sign say? 2 lanes closed at that road, which I don't go on, or anywhere near. So I'm okay. But I try to conduct my life in that way. I don't think I behave in a way that I wouldn't want other people to behave. Even with all my crazy tinfoil hat shit. Like, if there's interesting information out there, I would want other people to be telling me this. Like, what? I didn't know that. Like, I want to know stuff like that. That's the only reason I even kind of spread that stuff around. Like, when I find something out, like, what? I didn't know that was happening. And if I don't know, I'm pretty sure other people don't know. For the most part, they don't. When I start telling people stuff like that, did you know this? Or did you know that? Like COVID, perfect example. Like, how many people still think it might? Well, probably now it's becoming pretty commonplace information that it came. That it was there's a lot of stuff coming out about Fauci now and how he was involved in that. So the fact that America was involved in COVID and the creation of it, it's starting to become more commonplace. But I'm pretty sure there's a big segment of uninformed people out there that still believe the bat story. So if you were to insert the do unto others rule into that scenario, if you were misinformed, I'm pretty sure you would want to be properly informed. So once you become informed, it's kind of your duty to help spread that information. And to be honest, that's the whole foundation of spreading the word. If you're a Christian, you're supposed to be spreading the word to the misinformed, to the uninformed. That's do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So even that example, that rule still holds. Pretty sure that is the golden rule. It's funny, speaking of gold, this is my mind jumps all over the place. It's funny how like gold was, before technology became a thing, before there was any technology, gold was used as the most precious metal for currency, right? They didn't use anything else in terms of like the most valuable coin was minted in gold. And it's funny how even in like ancient times, gold was recognized as being extremely valuable. Now into the modern age of today, that's extremely obvious in how it's incorporated into electronics. It's the most durable metal to use in the transmission of an electronic signal. A gold wire, that's the top metal used for that. Even the phrase the gold standard, right? This is the gold standard of this or that, of automobiles, of whatever. The gold standard is like the number one top tier standard. That's why that phrase is used. But it's interesting how like ancient people, for whatever reason, understood gold was valuable before they knew they could even use it for something else. And then that makes my tinfoil start to tingle, only because, like, is there a deeper reason why? Like if you wanted to securely put your tinfoil hat on, and I was writing a movie around this idea, I would say, there's a phrase called the Great Reset. Like there's an idea that humanity, to a certain degree, needs to completely be reset. Like and this coincides with an idea I've had floating in my head about the human race starting to spoil, much like a fruit. Fruit ripens to a certain point, and that's when you harvest it for consumption because it's at its peak optimal stage of development. But anything past that, it starts to spoil. And I think humanity, to a certain degree, develops in the same way. And going back to the tinfoil of this idea, if humanity has been around for a certain period of time, much longer than we know, then you'd have to ponder the idea that maybe we've already developed to that point. And this goes back to some of the things that can't be explained in the past. Like if you want to bring up the pyramids and how the people, there's speculation as to how they were built, but I mean, a lot of people say, a lot of well-educated people, not even crazy conspiracy theorists, well-educated people say this, we really don't know how they did some of the stuff that they did back in those ancient times. How they knew, the positioning of those pyramids aligned with specific, constellations and stars that are in the sky. There's like a level of knowing that we can't really account for. And maybe there was technology back then that we don't really understand. And maybe gold was involved in it. And maybe that's how they knew. That's how they knew over a period of time that gold is extremely valuable, but they relegated it to just a simple means of barter and trade. But it is kind of funny, to be using something like that. Something so needed. Like even today, right? Like food and shelter and all the things that sustain life that you really need. You're trading like these material forms of they just sit there. It's like a coin is just a coin. It doesn't do anything. It's just a means of trade. And it's a symbol of really all money is a symbol of energy consumption, right? You to a certain degree, you output some energy and you did some stuff to earn these things so you can give these things away for other things. Right? It's a conduit. That's all money really is. It's a go-between. All right, I shoveled some dirt. Some guy gave me some shiny coins. I took these shiny coins and gave them to this other person for food. That's what money is. It's a symbol of I did some stuff. That's why when people like to complain about the hyper rich, like Elon Musk, his mind came up with the means to do some pretty wild stuff. He was able to accumulate a lot of coins. He didn't just shovel some dirt. So anyways, as I take my exit and safely arrive almost to my destination, I guess that goes back to the illusion page. What money is, it's just an illusion. It has no inherent value in and of itself. It just sits there doing nothing. Except for symbolize what you did to get it. So if you don't have a lot of it, you should probably do a little more. That's what I say. And no one to blame but yourself. That's why I don't like when they pick on the hyper rich. Especially because everybody wants to be hyper rich. So if you were ever fortunate enough to gain that position in life, well, now you're the person people are going to be complaining about. And you were once that person that was complaining. And that all goes back to the do unto others as you would have them do unto you. People don't get it. How circular everything is. It's pretty crazy. And this is like simple thinking. I don't really understand how everybody's minds are securely seated in this type of mentality. All right. Well, I'm here. I'm going to park my car in my spot. It's just paint my name on this spot. Boop. Okay. Let's have a day.